you bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Go! And a good morning, Birds fans. Last couple of weeks, each day of the week I've described as undefeated. Undefeated Monday, undefeated Tuesday, undefeated Wednesday, because the Eagles were undefeated. Can't say that today. It is a manic Monday here on Birds 365, show number 630. And Johnny Mack, I got to tell you.
I haven't asked in a while. 6:30. I got to write that down.
The 629 previous iterations of Birds 365 are unlike today's because of all the shows we've done, and only however many of them, how many games the Eagles have played, 50 some odd games, 60 some odd games since you and I started doing the show. I have never started a show saying I did not see that coming. Even when the Eagles were, and we started 2 years ago with Nick Sirianni when they fought their way into the playoffs, got beat by Tampa Bay, lost 8 games that regular season. And the whole time you and I have been doing this show, I've never felt so much like asking you, what the heck happened yesterday?
Oh, boy. Perfect storm. I mean, you lose the turnover battle. That's where it starts. You lose the turnover battle for nothing. You know, typically you don't even have a chance to win the game. So that's number one. Team that's good with ball security all of a sudden for 60 minutes was bad with ball security. And then you had the uncharacteristic, we just talked about it before we jumped on. Devontae Smith, 2 drops. That just doesn't happen. Jake Elliott missed 37-yard field goal. That just doesn't happen. It all happened in the same game. And then you have the injury, Lane Johnson. And we got to keep an eye on that because it's a long history of this team. This team's not good. It's bizarre. This team, don't get me wrong, Lane Johnson's an all-pro player, potential former Hall of Fame player. But you rarely see an offensive lineman. You see it with quarterbacks. The Jets are a perfect example. We all thought they were a Super Bowl contender or on the cusp of being a Super Bowl contender. They lose their quarterback. That's understandable. You take a step back. They take a step back when the right tackle's off the field, which tells you how important the right tackle is. And he, I think, played 9 plays, and you saw some of the repercussions of that. Just a bunch of things. And the fact that, oh, by the way, when we say the Jets were a Super Bowl contender, that wasn't just because of Aaron Rodgers. That was the final piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of good players on the other side of the football. Quinnen Williams, Garrett Wilson, on and on and on and on. And I'll throw the coaching in there. It's still a lot of hubris in that coaching. They thought they could do whatever they want in that game. To me, if you come out of that 2-minute warning, run the football, drain the clock, the Jets are out of the timeout, you probably get it down to about 105. Even if Braden Mann hits a touchback, and he was punting well, getting his revenge, one of the few players getting his revenge on the Jets. But even if he touches it back, they got to go 20 from the 20 with Zach Wilson with no timeouts and a little over a minute. And yeah, they only need a field goal, but I like my chances there. I like my chances. So a lot of hubris from the coaching staff. I'll throw that into the pots, the cocktail. Jalen Hurts, uncharacteristic bad decision, on that third down play, throwing in the double coverage. Everything that could go wrong, Newton's law went wrong, and they lost the football game. Look, San Francisco lost on the same day to P.J. Walker. The Bills were a play away, a yard away from losing to the New York Giants. Probably should have lost if they just ran the football. A lot of weird things happen in this league. Usually they don't happen to the Eagles. Yesterday, they happened to the Eagles.
It was just a weird day, and the Eagles were as close to the top of the list as you can get. But I'm glad you went there about the final couple minutes of the game. Because, yes, we've been talking about this since after the Super Bowl last year, and the Eagles lost both of their coordinators, and they hired one from within and one outside to take their places. And the Eagles were winning games early in the season, 5-0 going into yesterday's game. But I hadn't really gotten a sense of whether the two new coordinators were holding up their end of the bargain, still learning on the job, long way to go. This could be a bad hire. I was incomplete on deciding on both of those two guys, and I thought I would be after 5 games, but maybe I thought I'd be further along. Yeah, I'm sorry. Brian Johnson takes an L yesterday. How do you not try and run out the clock there at the end of the game? You just laid out the scenario. I'm saying the same exact thing to myself as I'm watching the game. You got to let Zach Wilson, with a little over a minute and no timeouts left, drive it 45 to 50 yards to then watch a field goal kicker who, oh, by the way, your guy who never misses one inside the 40. You got to put it on Greg Zerline.
Well, he was kicking pretty well, though. But, yeah.
How'd Jake kick this year?
Well, Jake was.
What happened for 37 yards yesterday?
But, I mean,
You're
in the
saying
game.
Greg Zerline's a lock from 50
No.
with the game on the line?
No, but in the game, he was kicking well. And obviously, all they had was field goals to that point. They had 4 field goals. So they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. Look, and that's where I bring up, yeah, you can criticize Brian Johnson, but that's Nick Sirianni. I mean, that's, he's the head coach. He's the game manager. He stepped back from being the play caller because he wanted to manage the game, right? That's managing the game. And that's why I bring up that word, a little bit of hubris, thinking, we'll make a play because we always make a play. And let's go win the game right now. I do think you have to realize the situation. If that's Aaron Rodgers, I agree with him. Go for it. It's not. It's Zach Wilson.
The ball back. Right.
With 1:05 and no timeouts, you almost know he's going to panic at some point, do something, maybe throw it underneath when he shouldn't throw it underneath. All of a sudden the clock runs, bang, you tackle somebody in bounds, game's over. Yeah, I thought he should have played it safe, and he was very aggressive. Now that I see both sides of it because that's Nick's nature, and that's this team's won a lot of games with that aggressive mindset, and it came up and it bit him. I just didn't think, and I think he pays. To be honest, I think he pays too much lip service about not disrespecting the opponent. In this situation, you got to be smart. Who cares what other people think? Who cares? It's Zach Wilson. Make him beat you. Now, he'll say, I trust my quarterback, and he should trust his quarterback because the quarterback has earned that trust. And the quarterback made a bad play. Let's be honest. He made a bad play. So I get both sides of it. You need to trust your quarterback. And if this were, forget about Aaron Rodgers. If this were insert name last week, Matthew Stafford, next week, Tua Tagovailoa, who's having a great season. There's about 20 quarterbacks I'd say, you know what, go for it. Try to win the game. This ain't one of them. I'm putting the game on his shoulders. And if he beats me, he beats me. But the defense was playing well. They only gave up what 240 something total yards, 155 passing.
And did Garrett Wilson have about 150 of those? It seemed
Yeah.
like the only play the Jets made on offense all day was the Garrett Wilson catch.
Yeah. Well, he's a great player, by the way.
He's
Garrett
very
Wilson
good.
would be a star already, and he is a star. But I think everybody would know him if Aaron was healthy, and he'd be having a great year. But he's a great player. You know, one thing that frustrates me with coaches, and this is both sides. The Eagles had something going, obviously, with A.J. Brown. Fourth consecutive game over 125 yards. Devontae Smith, who I thought would have a big game, is uncharacteristically dropping the football. Dallas Goedert, you can talk about a couple drops as well. Keep going to AJ. Keep feeding AJ. And the Jets, I would say, not only did they not keep feeding Garrett Wilson, they kept, the Eagles weren't traveling James Bradbury. And they'd line him up on Bradbury. And he still beat Bradbury, don't get me wrong. But why? You have, on the other side, you have Josh Jobe and Eli Ricks. Before Eli Ricks, they're rotating before Ricks got hurt. They'd line him up over there. And coaches get in their own heads and they say, well, we can't keep doing the same thing. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. They can't cover them. They're not traveling. The good corner, line them up on that side. I think they would have had more success, but they didn't do it.
Yeah, I know that it's Nick's team. At the end of the day, Nick is going to get the credit and or take the blame, and he took a goodly amount last night. His first statement of, well, the players talk to themselves, so I didn't even need to. I'm not refuting that. It's probably true. I said, but I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to hold myself accountable too, and he will, and I trust he will. I'm going to give Brian Johnson more grief than you are, though. And I was actually, for the majority of the game, I was okay with his mindset, which is they're down to their third string cornerbacks. They're bringing guys up from the practice squad to play against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Yeah, we're going to throw a little bit more than we usually do. We're going to lean toward the pass because a good coach takes in the opposition. You just don't dismiss them. Although if there was a team to be dismissed before the game started, it was probably the Jets. You don't. But you look at them, you analyze them and go, how can we beat this team? And throwing the ball a lot seemed like a damn good game plan to me at the start of the game. But you also have to be able to adjust as you go. And you have to be able to see that something is or isn't working. And then the biggest adjustment is you got to go time and score. At the end of the game, you got to run 3 times. I don't care how much you try. If I had Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce out there, I'm sorry, I'm running the ball on 3rd down. You've got one of the best running quarterbacks in the National Football League. You don't want to try a handoff. You don't want to think about a fumble. Then just tell Jalen, who never fumbles, to hold the ball, take off, get 5 yards, take 10 more seconds off the clock, run 40 more seconds after that, and the Jets got to go long field to kick a field goal and win. I'm sorry. That's on the guy who calls the play on 3rd down. And I don't think Nick Sirianni called that play on 3rd down. He can say it's our philosophy and we're aggressive and we thought we could end the game right there. That was the play call from the offensive coordinator. And I just thought, I know it's 20/20 hindsight, but even before the ball went in the air and as soon as I dropped back and threw it, I knew it was going to be a pass, not take off and run. I'm going to myself, what the hell did they call? I'm sorry. That's on Brian Johnson. I'm not giving
I can't agree, specifically for the reason I just said. Nick gave up the play calling to manage these situations, to manage these exact situations, to manage the game. That's why he gave up play calling. That is on him 150%. It's also on the quarterback for making a bad decision. But I'm with you. They should have ran the football. I just said it. I'm with you 100%. Now, from that standpoint, because they make a bad decision, that doesn't give Jalen Hurts carte blanche to just make his worst decision of the
Right.
game. He's got to be smart enough. They trust him for a reason. That part of it, I get. Like I said, he's earned that trust, and he made a bad mistake in a big situation. But when it comes to Brian Johnson versus Nick Sirianni, 100% Nick Sirianni. That's specifically why he gave up play calling, because he said, you know what? I get bogged down. I can't manage the game. I can't do what I want to do. And that is the biggest game management situation you can have. And to his credit, he takes 100% of it. I'm not saying Nick is trying to shoulder it, but I get a lot of people are going to say, well, the play caller made a bad play call. Well, Nick Sirianni could say, we got to run the ball. We got to run the ball here. Let's let Zach Wilson's on the other side. Let's force Zach Wilson to beat it. It was coming out of the 2-minute warning. They had plenty of time to discuss this, Jody. That is on the head coach, the game manager, the CEO coach, and then it's Jalen Hurts, and then you can get to Brian Johnson.
Okay. Here's a question, a hypothetical. Everybody on the stream loves my hypothetical questions that I will ask of you, John McMullen. Usually I ask of our guests, and it's one that I'm pretty sure even 10 years from now, if you and I are still doing Birds 365 and Nick Sirianni has moved on to become a coach for another team, because it could happen, because the Eagles,
everybody's got a shelf life.
Right, exactly. We thought Andy Reid might retire as an Eagle coach after 35 years of coaching him. Nope. At some point, they moved on from Andy Reid. So 20 years from now, you get Nick Sirianni. You see him at the scouting combine. He's working for another team. There's nothing to be gained or lost. You tell him, off the record, Nick, I'm never going to say this. I'm just going to whisper this in Jody McDonald's ear prior to one of our Birds 365. I'm not going to bring it up on the air. Who made that call on the play? Did Johnson call a running play, and did you overrule him and say, no, we got to put the ball in Jalen's hands? We trust our quarterback. Let's go for the first down and end this year. Is that not at least a possibility?
It's plausible. Yeah, it's plausible because he's in control of those situations. But I'm not even going that far. It's certainly possible that Brian said, let's run the ball. Nick said, let's go win it, because he's got an aggressive mindset. I'm not going to go that far. But I do know, because I've had these discussions with Nick Sirianni, I do know he wants complete control in those game management situations. So whatever happens is with his tacit approval, especially coming out of the 2-minute warning. So I don't know if he changed it. Brian could have very much understood what Nick wants in that type of situation and called the play and called the passing play and says, I know my head coach is aggressive, wants to go win the game. So your hypothetical is certainly possible. But to me, it doesn't even matter, because I know Nick Sirianni would have overruled if he wanted that football run and he wanted to drain clock. That's exactly why he stepped back and took the role he wants the role, because he wants to be the puppet master in those big situations.
I say shame on both of them. If you want to put that much more on Sirianni, right? He's head coach. One guy's the offense coordinator, one guy's the head coach. Who's going to take more of the blame? Head coach. Who should take more of the blame? Head coach. So if you put him in an order, Sirianni's certainly on top. The drop off isn't as great for me as it is for you. You think that it's 90% on Sirianni. I would give Brian Johnson a little bit more grief for that particular play call, and that was a game-deciding play call. All right, Mac, we got plenty to talk about. Eagles lose their first game. 49ers lost theirs, too. It's one thing Sirianni says, all coaches say it. It's tough to win games in the National Football League. I roll my eyes when coaches say that. But then you have a day like yesterday.
Well, they're right.
A whole bunch of games
right,
that you didn't see coming come down the pike. You go, yeah, they're onto something there about stuff to win games in the National Football League. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. Mac. We've got two good guests for you, both Eagle-centric, both in the house yesterday for yesterday's game. Which, a quick note, people are all upset because I'm a Jet fan, still a Jet fan. I root for the Eagles. They're my second favorite team, but the Jets are the one New York team I still root for. I'm going to tick them off all again now. I got to give credit to, believe it or not, and this is just personal experience sitting in the stands yesterday, Jet fans. I thought it was going to be another Eagle takeover with the Jets at 2-3 and no Aaron Rodgers. And it wasn't even 80-20, John.
No.
The Jet fans were there in force. I thought they were going to give up their tickets. And I heard one EAGLES chant when I came in the door in line waiting to get in. And that was about it.
Yeah.
You go to the road games all the time, and out in LA last week, sound like an Eagle home game to me on the radio, on the television. It was not the case yesterday. There were the Jet fans were there, and they were loud, and they were proud, and they walked out and went nuts at the end of the game.
Yeah, I always say with road games, you can only take over if they let you take over.
Right,
and they
Detroit
didn't let
last
them.
year.
Detroit,
Remember you coming back from
won.
Detroit going,
I was
couldn't
stunned.
believe.
Yeah, I was stunned. No, there were no Eagles fans in the building. Maybe 10%. Same thing here. Yeah, they didn't let them take over.
No,
they certainly would have. You only got to go 90
Yeah.
miles up to whatever it is, up the turnpike.
Easy a commute as you get. Don't have to get on a plane to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I did not think that was going to be the case. Much like the game yesterday. I had a bad read on that one. Also, the fan bases. I was surprised that the Jet fans were in masses the way that they were. All right, quick timeout. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, scheduled to join us. He was there. He just disappeared. Hopefully we get him back. He's going to join us. And then a little later, Chris Franklin from NJ.com. So keep it right here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
You got your Mac guys here on Birds 365 after the first Eagle loss of the season. It comes at the hands of the undermanned Jets. Again, I'm going to say this 20 times today. Didn't see this one coming. We'll find out if Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports saw this one coming as well. He looks like he can hear it. Can you hear us, Jeff Kerr? You were ready to grab the headsets there.
Oh, no, I can hear you guys perfectly. By the way, Joe, I agree. Jets fans owned their own stadium yesterday. There was green, but it wasn't Eagles green.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a good job, Jets fans, from an Eagles takeover. And look, you can't take over unless the opposition lets you. So they deserve credit for that. The Jets fan base not giving up, and they performed. I saw a quote this morning. And I said on the post-game show, Jeff, I said Jalen Hurts, played a bad game. I want to revisit that. I don't think he played a bad game. I think he played a last 2 minutes. I think there were a lot of good things in there from Jalen Hurts, but obviously it gets overshadowed. And I saw someone say the Eagles have, and he's right, by the way, better playmakers than 99% of the NFL. Certainly in that range. They got great playmakers. Devontae Smith, bad game. Dallas Goedert, at least bad play in a bad situation. DeAndre Swift, awful yesterday. Playmakers, except for A.J. Brown, didn't show up yesterday for the quarterback. True or not in your mind?
I didn't think Jalen Hurts played that bad of a game. I thought he had a bad last quarter, but I think that was because he was clearly carrying the football team. They got nothing from the offensive line, especially when Lane Johnson went out. Yeah. They got nothing from the running backs. 14 carries for 33. I don't want to hear the Eagles don't run the ball. You can't run the ball if – I'm losing my train of thought here. I'll just say it. Yeah. This is how upset I am about their running backs. You can't run the ball efficiently if you're getting the ball and you're only getting a yard. That's on the offensive line. That's on the running backs they have. Kenny Gainwell gives them nothing. Boston Scott gives them nothing. DeAndre Swift can't pass block. There you go, John. I said my piece.
Yeah, that was a pretty poor performance by the entire running back room yesterday. We'll give you that. John made a great point in the first segment about the right tackle going out of the game and the offense looking completely different. How many teams in the National Football League does that happen to? Quarterback goes down, okay. Running back and a heavy run team goes down, okay. Your star wide receiver, okay. The right tackle, he goes down, and it seems to have this domino effect on the entire offensive line. How much trouble are the Eagles in if this is a high ankle sprain and Lane Johnson's going to miss a month?
I said to John yesterday, the Eagles are 13-23 when Lane Johnson does not start a game. Now, he started yesterday, but they're in trouble. That is one of two guys, I believe, on this team you can't afford to lose. The other one is Jalen Hurts, by the way. They were abysmal on the right side of the offensive line without Lane Johnson. Oh, by the way, they didn't have Cam Jurgens either. So you're having backup Sua Opeta and backup Jack Driscoll. Driscoll allowed 7 pressures. Opeta allowed 5. It was bad. It was a poor performance. And I'm not going to sit here and just blame everything on Jack Driscoll because he is the backup right tackle. He was thrown into a spot that he normally isn't in, but they are significantly going to miss Lane Johnson if he's out. Now, just talking to a couple guys in the locker room, don't want to speak for Lane. They don't want to say anything, but it seems like they avoided a major injury.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we start. So I went down the list. If you go back to last year into health, during that game, they lost Lane Johnson. They lost Reed Blankenship to a rib injury on the blind side block. You also have Jalen Carter, Darius Slay, Cam Jurgens, you mentioned, Avonte Maddox, everybody's forget about. They also lost Bradley Roby in the game. Justin Evans, everybody's favorite Quez Watkins. 8 starters, 8 of 22 were not in that game. And that's another thing. Eagles got, and Howie mentioned this a couple times in the offseason. Probably not going to happen again. We're probably not going to be as healthy. They're not as healthy. And in a lot of ways, you look ahead, and obviously they have a big test this week with Miami. The defense has kind of held up pretty well. Do you think that was more Zach Wilson or more of the defense playing well?
I think it's more the defense playing well. By the way, I went scorched earth in our CBS Slack room last night because I believe our friend Zach Rosenblatt reported Aaron Rodgers was helping out the Jets offense on the sidelines yesterday. I'm like,
Wow.
why is that such a big deal? What did they do? They didn't do anything. The Eagles defense, Zach Wilson confused the entire day. They held Breece Hall in check. Breece Hall didn't have a monster run against them like he normally does. Like Garrett Wilson, was okay. But
I thought Garrett
Wilson was
great.
better than okay.
I thought Garrett was great, but for some reason they wouldn't go to him.
They didn't go to
Jody, they went to him a lot, but my whole point is the Eagles were not traveling Bradbury with Garrett Wilson, so they could have lined him up 100% of the time if they wanted to against Josh Jobe and or Eli Ricks.
Right.
I would have lined him up 100% of the time against Josh Jobe and Eli Ricks. That's not an insult to those guys. It's just and if the Eagles aren't going to adjust, and I imagine if it went to that degree, they would have ultimately adjusted. But nonetheless, I think that gives more credit to Zach Wilson. Yeah, I'm still not a Nathaniel Hackett fan. And if he was helping out, they're probably a little bit better than if they're letting the offensive coordinator help out. But I digress. That's the Jets. The Jets won the game on the defensive side of the ball and creating turnovers. And now, if you look at them, other than the last one, none of them were on Jalen Hurts. The first one was Dallas Goedert, whether you want to call that a drop, punch out, whatever. He's got to secure that football. It pops up. Quinnen Williams gets it. The other interception was Jermaine Johnson beating Jack Driscoll, getting the arm of Jalen Hurts. It just pops up. And then DeAndre Swift puts the ball on the ground. So I think you look at the box score and people say, well, Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions. Big one at the end of the game. That's all on Jalen Hurts. But not as bad as it looks on paper.
I agree. Two of those interceptions definitely weren't Jalen. In fact, of his 7 interceptions this year, 3 definitely aren't on him. And I could say maybe a 4th or a 5th aren't on him. There's the box score. My issue is, why do bad things seem to happen to this football team turning the ball over when they are Dallas Goedert? Hurts was looking for Dallas Goedert on was it 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9, John, where he threw the last pick? Do you
3rd
remember?
and 9, I believe.
3rd and 9. I thought Hurts could have ran
3rd and
there.
9. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but they try to force feed Dallas, which isn't a bad thing, but I didn't see him.
I'm not going to blame that one on Dallas. I mean, Jody and I were talking about it, so I'll throw it out to you. I'm saying, look, you're coming out of the 2-minute warning. The Jets are out of timeouts. It's 3rd and 9. I'm running the football. I'm draining 45 seconds off that clock and forcing Zach Wilson to go the entire field to get a field goal in just over a minute. That's how it would have shaken out if you run the football. They didn't. They decided to be aggressive. We'll use 100%. I put 90 on Nick Sirianni. He's the game manager. I put 7% on Jalen Hurts for an awful decision, throwing into double coverage. And I'll put 3% on Brian Johnson for calling the play. Give me your 100% with those 3 players on it. And by the way, Dallas Goedert, 0%. I mean, he's not open.
I'm not blaming Dallas Goedert for that. It's just I don't understand what Jalen was thinking, honestly, because I just didn't see him open. As a matter of fact, I thought Jalen was going to run the ball. So I'm going to give him 20% of the blame.
Ooh.
I'll give Nick 75, and I'll give.
Yeah, you two are giving Brian Johnson a bigger pass than I am. He's the guy who eventually called the play in, so he should have been forceful. I know he's just a 6th game coordinator, but he's got to stand up and go, Nick, we need to run the ball. We need to take 50 seconds off the clock here. Come on. Let's get Jalen on a quarterback draw and see if he can get the first down for us and end the game.
And there's my issue. What running back can get them a couple yards of fumbling? I don't think they trust DeAndre Swift to do it. And they say they trust him, but do they really?
Well, like I said, I would have called a quarterback draw. I would have left the ball.
Yeah, I know, but you can't run Jalen Hurts all day long. I agree with you.
It's not all day long. It's the last play of the game, man.
Yeah, you got to go win the game.
Yeah,
I have no
I'm
problem.
not worried about how many carries he had before, how many carries he's going to have afterwards. I'm just going to make him run the football. All right, John, we're having trouble with the connection with Jeff there, so we'll get him to answer this question if we can get him back up, but I'll ask you first. And this is away from yesterday's game. It's tough to do after you lose a game you're not supposed to lose to get away from it, but this is an overall legal philosophy question. The Eagles took a couple of victory laps last year, and yes, Howie, to his credit, after the year said there was a little luck involved because the Eagles do look at luck as a four-letter word. They don't like you ever mentioning it or bringing it up in question. There's no luck in the National Football League. There's no crying. There's no luck. Howie said we might not be able to be as healthy as we were last year. But they have at times, mostly through the coach's mouthpiece, of saying that their overall practice ethic and workload is designated for keeping their players healthy. And they took a victory lap about it, that they were that healthy last year because they don't go full out practice. They don't hit. They don't worry about it. They give more downtime than other teams in the National Football League. Well acknowledged that it's collectively bargained, so it's not like they can run Buddy Ryan type practices. That doesn't exist in the National Football League. But the Eagles, as compared to the other 31 teams in the National Football League, practice as little or maybe less than everybody else. How many injuries did you run off earlier, John? Into the game, coming out of the game?
Well, they were down 8 starters.
8 starters out of 22. How does something like that happen when the Eagles have said less is more? That less practice means more healthy players. Not when you lose an 8 out of 22 starters. Can we put to rest the less practice, less putting the players at risk guarantees the fact that they're going to be more healthy than other teams?
Jeff?
That's a good question. I just think the injury bug is turning the corner. Look, I just criticized the San Francisco 49ers for overusing Christian McCaffrey through 6 games, and now he's got a ribbon and an oblique injury. So, I honestly don't have a good enough answer for you, Jody. I just think guys are getting hurt. Not mine.
Yeah.
They got a lot of older guys on this
to
team.
itself. Guys get hurt. You don't. Yeah. You can't by practicing more, practicing less control. Injuries happen. There's nothing you can do about it. But the to use a word John used earlier, hubris of the Eagles to think that they can dictate how hurt they are or aren't going to be by how hard or how much time they put in practice is the thing that bothers me.
Also, Jody, I talked to several players yesterday, more than 5. None of them blame turf, by the way. None of them blame that place.
Well, everybody blames. Yeah, I had so many fans, and most of those injuries you could tell they were not turf related. Certainly, Reed Blankenship getting cracked on a blindside block has nothing
by the
to
way,
do.
Can I apologize? Can I interrupt? Now you guys both are reporters, and I expect you to be honest and put rooting interest aside and whatever else. And I am absolutely telling you,
I don't root for anybody.
Yeah.
That
you don't even root for yourself, John.
No, I don't.
I know. But let's be honest. The play that Reed Blankenship got hurt on, they threw a flag on a Jet player for a blindside block. Blindside, he caught him in the middle of the chest.
I said this too, Jody.
You can't peel back.
It wasn't a side injury. It wasn't a back injury.
No.
How the hell was that a penalty?
You're not allowed to peel back. It is a penalty.
Yeah, peel back. That's what it is. It's when I first saw it, I didn't think it was a penalty, but then that replay about 2 or 3 times, I'm like,
please define peel back. So the listeners and
you're not allowed to come back from the other side. So in other words, if he's coming back from say the 15 to the 20. He's not allowed to do that anymore. Now I know from your perspective, Jody, and from my perspective, we've been watching this game for so long. It didn't used to be a penalty. It is now, the over legislation of the game. So they made the right call. I'm just bringing up that had nothing to do with the turf, and Reed got hurt. In the old days, that would have been a great block, and you would have said, wow, what a block. And they would have put it on, videotapes and, championed it. But it is a penalty in the new age of the NFL. And he got hurt on
let's say on that
play.
play, and I forget who the Jet guy was who made the block. I'd like to give him credit for it. Because he at one point got down to the 15-yard line. He now can't come back to
he can't come back, and no.
So he's just got to stand at the 15-yard line until someone comes defensively, and then you're allowed to touch him.
Yeah, he can get.
If that's the way the rules are in the National Football League, they got to rethink the rules. That's ludicrous and ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's the game. That's the modern game. I don't like it either, but that is the rule. It was a proper call. It wasn't a bad call from the perspective of the official. He made the right call on the play. And I'm with you 100%. It's funny. The NFL, not the NFL, but it was announced that flag football's getting closer to be an Olympic sport or whatever. Yeah. I think we're getting there. I think eventually we're going to flag football. Yeah, they do this stuff all the time, Jody. I mean, it's not real football, what we consider real football, which is a very violent sport. But yeah, the official made the right call. I just brought it up because Reed didn't get hurt because of the MetLife turf, and everybody is saying, well, you got to get rid of that turf. And don't get me wrong, nobody likes that turf, but I don't think any of the injuries had much to do with the MetLife turf. So I just bring that up from the standpoint. But in the larger about the Eagles managing injuries, I think it has more to do with like Jason Kelsey's always banged up. I mean, people say, well, Jason Kelsey started 145 whatever straight games, set the franchise record. And they assume, oh, he's always healthy. No, he's always banged up. They try to get
Lane's
him
always
through.
banged up too.
Yeah, he plays through stuff. So, and most NFL players do, and that's what they're trying to do, not prevent injuries. They're not, and I use the word hubris. They're not that hubris, and how he said it, as I said multiple times, to think they can control ACLs or Achilles or torn pecs. That kind of stuff's going to happen in the NFL. They know that. They're just trying to manage the players who are banged up as best as they can, is what they're trying to do. And yet last year they got injury luck. This year, not as much. But I will say that Lane Johnson injury, in moving forward, whether it's a game, 2 games, 4 games, or God forbid, even worse, although early indications are the x-rays weren't terrible. We'll see what the MRI says. Do you just move forward with Jack Driscoll, put your head down, or do you try to get other people involved, Jeff Kerr? They have Tyler Steen. You can even go to a veteran like LaRaven Clark. What do you do?
Fred Johnson? Can Fred Johnson play?
Fred Johnson can play. He's a better left tackle than right tackle, but he could certainly be in the mix as well. Do you just say, you know what? Jack's our best option? Well,
Jeff frees up on us again. I give you my read. Here's how I would handle it. This is not me predicting what the Eagles will do, but putting myself in Nick Sirianni's shoes. Jack, it's yours this week. It's your gig. We have faith in you. We believe in you. We've given you the chance. I think he went out of his way to say last night, we've won games when Driscoll has played. Yeah. So I believe they have faith in him. You're on a short leash. You had a bad game against the Jets. You didn't. You can say that one Hurts interception was absolutely on him, which I do. Driscoll just got flat out beat. Yeah, it's his for now, but now can be short-lived, and it can be as quick as halftime of the next game against Miami if he's playing poorly. I think he starts next week, but you have to have a safety net, and you have to have other options that you can go to if you start next week against Miami the same way you finish this week against the Jets.
All right, good. I'm going to throw this at you. We'll try to get Jeff up here. Throw this at both of you. Accountability. That was a big buzzword after the game. Opportunity as well from Jalen Hurts. A bunch of Jalen Hurts-isms after the game. Sometimes you need to be, and again, I've been using this word too much, but I thought there was a lot of hubris in that game from the Eagles. Sometimes you need to be punched in the nose and to correct yourself. They were a little bit haughty. I think they thought they'd walk in there and beat that team pretty easily. So did I, to be honest. And they didn't.
I did.
Do you think that can help them? And they say, you know what? We took this for granted. We can't do that moving forward. Anything to that?
One of the key words I heard was reset. And I think that's a good word for them, kind of start fresh again, okay? And I also heard, too, it's better to get this bad loss out of the way now than later in the season when the gauntlet happens. But, teams are going to have bad losses in the NFL. I mean, the 49ers had one yesterday. They lost to a team with about
P.J. Walker, they lost to. Who had that on their bingo card?
Who was elevated from the practice squad this week. So, it's going to happen, honestly. But, I think they are show some accountability. I think now you got to look at this Dolphins game in a whole different light. I think they're going to be hyper-focused this week in practice because they don't want stuff to happen again. But it did seem like they thought like you, me, and you, me, and Jody. They thought that they were going to beat this team no matter what. And part of me says they would have at the end of football over 4 times because the Jets sure as heck weren't scoring an offensive touchdown. So, look, they played absolutely terrible and still almost football, which I think it's actually better they lost.
Thank you for leaving it just that way. You put them on the scale. They get better because they learned a lesson. They can't take teams. They hold themselves more accountable. That's a good thing. They're going to get better off this as compared to losing a game against the team you were supposed to beat. The season is 17 games. We know the magnitude of each and every single game. We know the level of competition. When you put them on the scale, the loss outweighs the gain. I'm sorry. You're not supposed to lose to the Jets. You're sure as hell not supposed to lose to the Jets. Sans their top 4 cornerbacks going into the game. Yeah. As much as they can learn from it, grow from it, and tweak their attitude for that, I'm sorry, that can't possibly outweigh losing a game to a team you're supposed to.
No, I agree. I'm saying afterward, is there a silver lining to it?
Sure, of course there is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't outweigh the loss itself.
No, yeah.
I put this out there too. We got to give Robert Saleh some credit here. He has faced Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. They have a combined 3 touchdown passes to 8 interceptions, no matter the personnel he has out there. That's tons of credit to the Jets defense there.
They have a ton of talent on defense. And they had none of their corners. You can imagine when their corners are out there. They have a ton of talent on that front 7. And that was the difference because people talked about, well, they stopped Aaron Donald. Well, they could afford to slide protection Aaron Donald on every single play. You can't do that against the Jets and Quinnen Williams because somebody else will beat you.
John Franklin Myers, mostly.
Yeah. Yeah, that dude, and Lane Johnson told me that during the week. He's one of the most underrated players in football, John Franklin Myers. Not a lot of people know who he is. Jermaine Johnson made a big play. Obviously, he's a first-round pick. He's got a ton of talent. The linebackers have been tremendous this year, especially Quinnen's brother, Quincy. C.J. Mosley's been around. Everybody knows C.J. He's a very good player. And when you have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's a very good defense. That's why I point out that, yeah, they're no longer a Super Bowl contender because the quarterback can't hold his water, but that doesn't make everybody else bad.
Right.
They still had really good players on the other side.
And oh, by the way, Devontae dropped a very catchable pass, about a 20-yard gain that he never drops. Quincy Williams dropped the most catchable ball all night. He had an interception right in his head.
Yeah,
hit
they
him
could
right
have
in the
six
middle
turnovers.
of the
Right out.
hand.
Yeah.
That's
I
another one
mentioned that. They could have had 6 turnovers.
Yeah,
the Jets.
Jalen dodged a major bullet on that one. Here's the one thing I'll say about Salah, because we hold Nick accountable for everything he says and probably overanalyze everything he says. I heard Sal on the postgame show say this afterwards, that they ran this gauntlet of quarterback. John just ran down the names or whatever. And he said, and we embarrassed every one of them.
Yeah. He had some more trash talk.
Robert, you're
after
3-3
that
here, big
Yeah.
guy. You're not 6-0. The Dallas Cowboys walked in your house and beat you by 30 something. Did you embarrass Dak Prescott? Really?
Jody,
did you just say that? Embarrassed each and every
Jody,
one
did
of
you-
them? That's what Salah said last night. And I was in the car listening, going, "Whoa, did he really just say that?"
Yeah.
Come on.
probably
Did
he
you
probably
hear him
did think that.
after he was done? Like he left the mic, but you could hear him. He said, "They ain't 12-0 against us anymore." He said it loud enough where like people could
Yeah.
hear it.
But yeah, I forgot to bring that up. Yeah, they finally beat the Eagles. That's a big moment in
And
Jets
the
lore.
whole we're gonna have to give him 11 kisses thing.
Yeah,
Didn't
that's
quite
not
pan
good
out
either.
for the Eagle offensive. That was supposed to be a major motivational raise the level of the game of the offense.
Yeah.
How dare he say he's gonna kiss? The Eagles didn't want the cheek sneak once.
All right.
last night, did they?
No, they didn't. They couldn't. They didn't really have it in a situation. At Jeff Kerr, CBS. Make sure you follow Jeff on Twitter, X. You can read his thoughts on this game. I know he's fired up about the running back room. All right, last excuse, explanation, whatever you want to call it. Letdown game. Miami, Sunday Night Football, best offense in football. Eagles just overlook the New York Jets and say, "Oh, Miami's on the schedule." Anything to that? Oh, we're frozen up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what question you're asking.
I'm saying, did the Eagles overlook the Jets because Miami is next?
Yeah. I don't think of overlooking a team as a letdown game. A letdown game is more about your team rather than the opponent.
Trap game. How's that?
Trap games. Yeah,
Trap
that
game.
to me is a different
Trap game.
way of looking at it.
What I should have
Maybe
said.
a little bit. And I said here with you last week, John, if there was a letdown in this game, I thought it was more likely to be the Jets after the go win one for the hack victory in Denver.
One for the hack.
After,
Yeah, I bet trap was what I meant to say.
Okay.
The trap game.
Was a bit of a trap game. Yeah, might have been.
Yeah, because the number one offense in football is coming in the next week. All the hype with that. I don't necessarily buy it, but just throwing it out there to see what you guys think of the trap aspect.
I'd put some weight on it, but and here's the thing about track games, and we're really focusing on the end of the game as well. We should. At some point, the trap aspect of it has to go out the window. When you've got the ball late in the game, the other team has used up all their timeouts, and you can take it down to a little over a minute and make Zach Wilson go to the field. How you felt, how you handled it, how you prepared, how you played the first 55 minutes goes out the friggin' window. Now it's all about the game is sitting there to be taken, to be won, and you screw it up. The fact that it was a game to that point and maybe it shouldn't have been, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. When you've got it right there for the taking and you don't take it, the trap aspect goes out the window.
Well, we should talk about that specific drive after the break more because it was shaping up as one of those classic Eagle drives where they're just going to milk the entire clock and get out of there with an ugly win, and then we'd be talking about style points again.
Right.
I guarantee you. But they were going to win the game, and then it turned. So we should delve into that drive a little bit deeper, because it started with 4:43. Everything was going swimmingly, and you kind of felt there were people leaving. They kind of felt it too.
I looked at my daughter. I said, if they get the first down here, we might make a quick run out of here.
Yeah.
So we'll do that when we come back. Thanks to Jeff Kerr. Had some technical issues today, but Kerr's always good. Chris Franklin yet to come in about 25 minutes from now. So more here on Birds 365. Stay right there.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac guys here on Birds 365, our first post-Eagle loss show of the year for the 42nd time today. Didn't see that coming, but it did as they lose to the Jets last night. We thank Jeff Kerr, who hopped on with us right before we went to break, talking about the last, well, what turned out to be the next last drive of the game, hoping it was the last drive from an Eagle perspective. Got the ball back with 4 minutes and change to go. The key part of the offense became throwing the ball to DeAndre Swift. I know we've been waiting for this all year, said he was going to be a guy who was going to add another aspect to the Eagle offense. They did in this drive, threw it to him twice. He had one really good run. They make the big play to Goddard on third down.
Yeah, that's when I thought the game was over. That was classic Eagles. 3rd and 7, 2:32 left. So that's it for the Jets, right? And bang, you get 11 yards to Dallas Goedert, first down, move the chains. 2:24 left at that point. You thought, all right, again, we're going to be arguing about style points, I thought. And the Eagles would get out with the win, and then everything went in a negative direction. Yeah, they got the ball with 4:43 left, and it was that I didn't think the Jets were going to get the ball back at that point, and I thought they were just going to drain the clock. Because, Seth on the postgame show, as he typically does, and we love Seth, but, he loves the running game, loves the old school football, and, they could not run the ball at all, basically, in the entire game. And they started out with, as you mentioned, a short pass to DeAndre Swift for 2 yards. But then he had a run up the middle for 9 yards. That was the first down on the drive. And that was his only run of the day. He had 10 carries, I think, for 19 yards. Or it might have been 18. So it might have been half. That means the other 9 were for 8 or 9 yards. Did nothing the entire game. They finally get a run in a big situation. Everything was going swimmingly, and they hit the 2-minute warning. And, I thought it was a bad decision, as we said, from the head coach. And maybe I should give a little bit more. I'm still not going Brian Johnson. Maybe I should go a little bit more to Jalen Hurts when we're talking about that 100%, because, again, bottom line, it doesn't matter if the coach makes a bad decision or the play caller makes a bad decision. That doesn't mean you have to make a bad decision. And worst case, you throw an incompletion, and you don't get to take that 40 seconds off the clock, but you can still punt the football and force Zach Wilson to beat you. So maybe I should, on second thought, put a little bit more on Jalen Hurts' plate, because that was a terrible decision from the quarterback.
Right. And I said this when Jeff was on with us earlier. Worst case scenario, take off and run. If it's not there, he tried to force the ball to Goddard. It was in double coverage. He's throwing it off his back foot. He's going backwards to throw the football. No, pull it down, take off. Clock runs. Just keep that clock moving and make Zach Wilson go the length of the field. Yeah, Jalen screwed up. But again, they ran the ball on first and second down, got a grand total of 1 yard. Now the Jets knew it was coming, and the Jets defense is pretty good. They can stack it. And yeah, they stopped the Eagles at the point of attack, but risk reward, you can't take the chance and throw the football there. I'm sorry. That's we can.
No, and again, that's the worst case. Should be incomplete pass. Worst case. Obviously, the worst case we saw is an interception going the other way. But if you're the quarterback, even if you throw an incompletion, all right, again, you don't get to drain 45 or whatever seconds off the clock, but there's still whatever, a minute 50, then you punt maybe a minute 45, and Zach Wilson still got to go 50, 60 yards with no timeouts. So probably would have worked out. Yeah, disappointing to say the least. But, maybe a wake-up call.
J-Mac, this was a question as I'm watching the game. I'm thinking, this will be something we can talk about tomorrow and something Sirianni and Desai are going to have to answer questions on. But it became a completely irrelevant topic because of the way the game went and the Eagles lost. They actually went to rotating linebackers.
Yeah, how about that?
Got that leading up to the week. Didn't know if Nakobe was going to play. Opened the practice window. The whole, does Morrow get to stay as the starting linebacker because he's been that good conversation? And I did say, would the Eagles go to rotating linebackers? Because last year they did no rotating. It was the two guys, White and Edwards, out there every single play, no linebacker substitutions. To their credit, they both stayed healthy. But that was just the way they ran their linebackers. But that was Gannon last year, and this is Desai, and maybe he'll do it differently. And he did. He rotated all three of them, which came as a surprise to me. They were all fine. None of them made a massive play. None of them made a massive mistake. Do you think that continues? That he rotates the three linebackers going forward?
Yeah, man, they were playing everybody. They were not only rotating linebackers, they were rotating Job and Eli Ricks at the corner opposite James Bradbury. Now, some of the safety issues obviously dealt with Reed getting hurt. You had Mekhi Gardner. I see you're all choked up with Sean Desai's ability, but even Mekhi Gardner, was elevated, and he made his NFL debut at safety. They had so many moving parts. I asked Nakobe about that in the after the game. I don't think it's going to be long term, but I think it was more of a reward and said, you know what, Nicholas Morrow's played really well. Let's not just, and he started, by the way. Nicholas Morrow, they had one linebacker on the field to start. They were playing a lot of 50 fronts to try to limit the Jets' running game because they were more concerned with that. And by the way, they played well. They did limit Breece Hall for the most part. I thought Jordan Davis played really well. Got to rewatch the game. Obviously, I didn't have a chance to.
Play well last night? Milton Williams.
I thought, Fletcher was back. He had a couple big plays. Hassan Reddick had a huge game. Josh Sweat showed up. I think the front, as it typically does, even without Jalen Carter, I thought they played very well. And I think that's been the story because there's some issues on the back end, especially up the middle in pass coverage. But yeah, I was very surprised that they rotated the linebackers. I thought it would be Nakobe. Now, we did say they had him on a pitch count because he'd been out. Maybe it had to do with that. I think it had to do with a little bit of both. They're trying to reward Nick Morrow for playing well and a pitch count. Ultimately, I do think we get back to Nakobe Dean as the Mike linebacker, and then it becomes, Zach Cunningham versus Nick Morrow. And I think they like Zach Cunningham as well. So they're better at linebacker than we thought. And that's a positive. Small. I know no one cares about it today, but that's a slight positive.
From a lineup perspective, and we'll go back to that hubris word again. Maybe there was a little hubris involved. I was surprised when Lane Johnson went down that they didn't go to more two tight ends. You've got your superstar, Hall of Fame, right tackle, not in the game. As much as you may like Driscoll, there's a drop off. You should be attempting to run the football at least some. They use very little 12 personnel. And I would have gotten an extra tight end in there to block more than they did. Again, it might go back to the Jets are going to try and cover us with these cornerbacks who nobody can name or pick out of a lineup.
Well, Nick admitted, maybe that hurt, as counterintuitive as it was when the news came out that Sauce Gardner wasn't going to play. And Nick said, yeah, it changed a little bit, his game plan. He admitted after the game that when they saw that, they were like, ooh, we can take advantage of this. And I think they said, we're going to be able to do this at will. And they didn't ship maybe during the game as they should have, especially when Lane Johnson left. And they were, and on paper, they should have killed the Jets and backup corners. And AJ did. And Devontae had an opportunity to, the two big drops. Think about Devontae Smith with two drops. I would have laughed at you if you said that. There were some weird things going on. Jake Elliott, as we mentioned, 37-yard field goal. And by the way, I looked at the replay. Again, I haven't rewatched the game, but I did pay attention to the operation. Looked like a good snap, good hold. He just missed it. Devontae never drops passes. Dallas got it occasionally. All right. He drops a pass here and there. Devontae, that doesn't happen. Jalen Hurts, tremendous ball security. That typically doesn't happen. Good decision making, makes a terrible decision. Sometimes there's things you can't explain, Jody. There really is.
And because the Eagles lost the game, and because we're questioning the play calling and the coaching and this and that and the other thing, AJ Brown is just a beast.
Oh,
and I know they're the Eagles' the Jets' third string cornerback, so it wasn't like he was doing this against Sauce Gardner, but he's just basically unstoppable. The Jalen just puts the ball up there and he goes and gets it, and then he runs after catches. And if there's a better wide receiver, a guy who's playing wide receiver right now in the National Football League, who's doing it better than AJ Brown, I'd really like to know who he is, because I don't think he exists.
Maybe Tyreek, but he got hurt yesterday, didn't he? That could be a big break for the Eagles.
But he came back and played afterwards. He wasn't one of those type of. He went out during the game, but he did come back in afterwards.
Well, he's playing great. But it's a very short list, and obviously Jefferson's hurt. He's not. I would say Tyreek, and that's the list.
I remember here, and I'll take a hit for this. And I took grief from our friends on the stream and on WIP as well. The day they acquired it, AJ Brown, I ranked all the wide receivers in the National Football League, and I said, I've got him at number 11, which means he's just outside the top 10. It wasn't like I had him 19th. I had him 11. So I had him.
That's still pretty stinking good.
It is, but I said he's not quite a top 10 wide receiver. And that's all anybody heard. What do you mean he's not a top 10 wide receiver? Man, has he been a top 10 wide receiver since he
but I said the same thing.
Receiver. It's a top 1 wide receiver.
I actually said the same thing when we did that. I said probably just outside the top 10. Remember, he was in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill. There was no evidence. And remember, and there are Tyreek Hill exists, and he existed then. Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, on and on. There's a lot of good receivers. Stephon Diggs is somebody who should be mentioned. There's a lot of good receivers in the NFL. AJ belongs in the conversation with all of them. But, if push games to shove and you say, all right, who's better, Hill or AJ? I'm going to take Tyreek. Justin or AJ? I'm going to take Justin. But he keeps climbing the list. I would say before they acquired him, I would have said Chase. I don't necessarily say Chase now. Devontae Adams, yeah, probably, but he's on a bad team, bad situation. So who cares? Same thing with Jefferson. Is Jefferson better when he's healthy? Yeah, probably, but who cares? He's on a bad team, bad situation. AJ's great. Leave it at that as far as where he is, and nobody's playing better. He's had 4 games of over 125 yards. That's happened once in the Eagles' history before. And you got to go back to Harold Jackson, who Jody probably remembers, but not many other fans will remember. It's been a while. So he's playing at a very, very high level.
And you made a good point in that when I was putting my list of what I'm doing it based on their accomplishments, what they've shown or whatever. I probably didn't cut him enough slack because it was Ryan Tannehill. Because you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Who's throwing you the ball? What kind of offense you're in? Are you going to be asked to put up those numbers? Derrick Henry is their number one weapon there, so he's not going to be getting the lion's share. Probably underestimated his talent level because
I say the same thing with Terry McLaurin now. I mean, for years, I think Terry's really good. If he were on a different team in a different situation with a high volume thrower, yeah, certainly that was part of the issue with AJ in Tennessee. But he's great.
And speaking of Terry McLaurin, quick note that we got to get the break. Chris Franklin's going to join us. I agree with Peter King on this one. Terry McLaurin's former quarterback should be starting in the National Football League next week. Desmond Ridder, no. The Falcons gave him a shot. He had a chance. That's a game they got to win if they think they can be a playoff team. Yesterday they didn't. Ridder stunk. I think you're going to get Taylor Heineke starting for the Falcons next week.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder. Oof, I'm not a fan. It's a shame. You got to be patient though with young quarterbacks because they're going to have some ups and downs. Look at what's going on in Carolina.
Yeah, but they invested the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah,
you're going to have more patience with him than Desmond Ridder, who you took in the 3rd round, got starts as a rookie, and you hand him the job at the start of year number 2. You don't think Desmond Ridder?
No, I'm not a fan of Desmond Ridder, but that's where they've gone. And I've criticized that team for not building the right way. All they do is pick skill position people, and everyone said, well, they got Bijan Robinson, they got Drake London, they got Kyle Pitts, blah, 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 blah. Well, you need somebody to get those guys the football. You need some guys to block for those guys so the guy can get them the football. I don't think they built the team the right way, and that certainly starts with the quarterback, but that's all they have. If you're asking me, am I going to stick with Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke? I know what Taylor Heineke is, and maybe he's better than Desmond Ridder on a particular Sunday.
Let us not forget, Taylor Heineke took the Washington Commanders to the playoffs.
But that's not the goal. That's where it shouldn't be the goal. And it should be
the goal right now. If you're sitting here in the season, week 6, you're in a division that there is no monster squad. Yeah, that should be the goal. Long term, it's not, of course. You're right. But in the moment, right here, right now, the goal is to win football games and get
I always say the toughest thing in the NFL for executives, for personnel people, is to be honest with themselves. So they have to be honest with themselves. Do they think Desmond Ridder still has an upside to be an NFL starting quarterback? If the answer is yes, you stick with him. If the answer is no, you don't.
All right, but so I'm asking John McMullen, and we know we're not as well informed as those guys who are making those decisions. They're around the team every single day. They're around every single practice. They know the players. We're judging from afar. You believe Desmond Ridder is going to be able to be a franchise quarterback in this league?
No.
Well, then,
but do I think he has a higher upside than Taylor Heineke? Yes. So I probably stick with him, but I'm looking for a quarterback in the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, even if you're wrong, even if I'm wrong, I get a higher draft pick, and maybe I start drafting correctly, drafting offensive, defensive linemen. And you try to find a quarterback, whether it's, a short-term stopgap or, you try to get in the top 10 and get a quarterback that way. They have a crappy foundational plan. I've talked about that team for years, and I don't like it. And all they do is pick skill position, which excites the fans and nothing else. So I'm sure everybody in Atlanta is thrilled until they watch the product on the field. And then they go, why can't we win games? We have all the skill position talent. Well, you need the foundation.
You got to build a team. I agree with you there. The one place you and I disagree is when you're 3-3 and the Bucs are in first place at 3-2 and the Saints at 3-3 and you got the Panthers in your rearview mirror at 0-6, you got to be in the moment. You got to think what's best in 2023. And if you can't honestly look yourself in the mirror and go, Taylor Heineke gives us a better chance to win next week than Desmond Ridder, then you don't deserve to have the job. It's not the long-term picture. It's a short-term picture. And you got to be in the moment of the short-term picture. When you're 6 games in, you're a half a game out of first place. That's how I would look at it if I were the Atlanta general manager. All right, quickie timeout. I see Chris Franklin. He's ready to join us. More what the heck happened in MetLife Stadium yesterday talk with Chris Franklin next here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grosinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grosinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Birds 365 Mac and Mac guys, and we are joined by one of our favorites who's indoors again today. Sometimes indoors, sometimes
Chilly
outdoors.
out, man. You can't go
It's
out.
cold.
It's cold.
Got the long sleeve shirt on. Always good when we catch up with Chris Franklin. We got tons of stuff to talk to you about with, but I want to start here. What's your biggest concern after the Eagle loss yesterday?
That offensive line really scares me now on that right side because now you have two backups on there. And to me, when you're on that side and for a quarterback and you're looking and you see that pressure coming from that area, it speeds up your clock. And the way that Opeta played solid, I thought. But the way Driscoll, the amount of pressures Driscoll gave up when he came in for Lane Johnson, if Lane Johnson's out, I have serious questions about how far this team can go in the playoffs. I really do. And
it's amazing how important Lane Johnson is to this team. It is amazing. Yeah. Typically, you say, look, even a great right tackle, you say that's a big loss if you lose them. The Eagles can't win. It's been that way for years. They don't win when Lane's not on the field. It's bizarre to that degree when you can say, obviously quarterback comes one, but you can make a strong argument that the most important player on this team after Jalen Hurts, you can make a strong argument it's Lane Johnson. And it's proven over time because he's missed enough time where you say, oh, this team stinks when he's not on the field, or at least not the same. I may be overstating.
No, I think when you look at it, it's almost like automatic. It's to a point. It's gotten to a point now where you look at like, well, we know there's not going to be that much pressure coming off the lane side. It's gotten automatic now, and for what they like to do, attacking those edges on the run game and trying to use that outside screen game, he's been an essential part of that. If he's not there, it's rough. You have almost to change your play calling a little bit because you pretty much have to go to the left side because you got Mailata and Dickerson are your more reliable side. Is your more reliable side now? It changes every lot.
Yeah. Jen and I have been going back and forth on this since the show started today. One play. And I know no individual game comes down to one play. That's ridiculous. But
this
one play can be more important than any other play. 3rd and 9, under 2 minutes to go. They decide to pass the ball. Whether the pass was smart, whether the route was right, whether Jalen made a mistake, all factors into it. But they decided to pass the ball. And John and I just shake our head and go, you have to run the ball there. You can't give me we were aggressively trying to win the game. I'm a cocky SOB as a head coach. That's the way I've coached since I became the head coach of the Eagles. That defense doesn't work. It's just a bad football decision. Is it not, Chris Franklin?
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's one of the few times I think in the season where you look at your defense and say, I got confidence they can stop them here. And to me, it looked like it was I don't know if we can truly stop Zach Wilson, which is kind of a big eye-opening thing in the middle. Maybe it's more, I don't know if we can stop Garrett Wilson type thing. But yeah, you have to run the ball in that situation. Even so much to just limit the amount of time they have to try to mount a comeback. Yeah. You have to run the ball in that. And I still, for the life of me, I know you're trying to, it's almost like you're outthinking yourself, trying to think, okay, well, they think I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do this. Can't do that. You got to rely on what does well. You relied on DeAndre Swift so much this year. And even if they were averaging less than 4 yards a carry last year, you have to give them the facts like, you know what? I trust that he's going to pick up or make a significant dent in there, run the timeout, trust your defense, who was playing very well for most of the day yesterday, and then walk out there with a win.
Braden Mann was punting well. He was getting his revenge on the New York Jets. So he probably pins him back as well. Or in worst case scenario, it's a touchback. Zach Wilson, no timeouts with about 1:05, 10.
With that pass rush going as well as it did too.
Yeah. So we've been going through this. We asked Jeff Kerr, Jody and I gave it. So you got 3 decision makers there, right? You got Nick Sirianni, the game manager. You got Brian Johnson, the play caller. And you got Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, who even though the coaches made a bad decision, that doesn't mean you have to throw an interception. So I'm giving you the 100%. Dole out the blame, Chris Franklin, percentage-wise. Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts on the play that essentially lost the Eagles the game.
I think Nick's on a I'm putting 50 on Nick because he's on a headset and he's overhearing this because he has a chance to interject and stop that from happening. I put 40 on the decision on the type of. Well, actually, you know what? Nah, I'll take it back because I was thinking, because he shouldn't have put Hurts in that position to even throw the ball anyway. So yeah, 50% Sirianni, 40% Brian Johnson on the play call selection, and then 10 for Hurts when it comes to actually doing that. Because I think that could have all been prevented if you just said, you know what, let's check down and run the ball. And then we're not even talking about. I don't think we're even talking about that.
I went 90 Nick Sirianni because he's the game manager, Chris. He's the one who gave up play calling for this situation, and he's coming out of the 2-minute warning. He can discuss it with everybody. This is why he did it. So I almost went 100% Nick Sirianni, but I only went 90. Because my thought process is Brian's the least culpable in my mind. And then the quarterback, even though Nick makes a bad decision, that doesn't mean you have to throw the ball in the double coverage, Jalen Hurts. You can take a sack. Even if he takes a sack, they can punt the football, and you're still forcing Zach Wilson to beat you. So I went about what did I say, Jody? 90% Nick, 7% Jalen Hurts, 3% Brian Johnson.
Yeah. And I'm a lot closer to what Chris is. Sirianni, number one. It's his team. He's the guy. He's got to be number one. I'd go about 40% Sirianni, 35% Jalen, because the play comes in. You don't have to throw in the double coverage. Pull the ball down, take off, and run with it. About 25% to Brian Johnson, because he's the guy who eventually called the play. I don't think Nick called the play in. Nick may have influenced his thought process leading into it during the timeout. They had the entire 2-minute warning to talk about it, and that's what they came up with. I think it's close to equally shared. Sirianni most, Hurts second, the offensive coordinator third, but I think it's pretty damn close. But shame on all of them is my estimate.
And it gets even worse because we hear so much about the situational, how much they practice situational ball,
situational masters,
like that.
Chris. Situational masters.
And to be in that situation, it's almost like we're talking about. I hate to use the baseball terms with the NLCS, with the Braves not using the laying off and trying to use a simulated game. You can do all that simulated stuff on the side and try to put yourself in those situations. But when you're in the moment, and you're coming up with stuff like that, for what? It's just for life. I still don't know why. I'm still seeing that play. I'm like, why didn't you run the ball?
All right, the Eagles only scored 14 points yesterday. Not good. Jets defense, even missing the guys they were missing, is good, was good. Was the problem the lack of the threat of Quez Watkins going deep?
You're in trouble, man. Nah, I don't.
I apologize.
Sorry. Sorry. I think they still have enough spacing. There was still enough spacing there. I thought there's a couple more shots they could take in deep. I don't know why. It seemed like they forgot about the game plan. I really want to see the all 22 because AJ Brown was really humming, especially D. He got inside position on so many on those defensive backs, and they didn't just decide to go, okay, let's look a different way. Devontae didn't have his best game. That's probably the worst game I saw Devontae play.
Maybe Devontae, I didn't think of that. Maybe Devontae was his ode to Quez Watkins not playing. He decided to drop a couple footballs. That was tremendously unfair. When did we see Devontae Smith drop 2 passes in a game?
And after he made that catch that wasn't a catch after that one-handed, you're just like, oh, wow, he's really feeling himself today. Like, he made that one-handed catch on the sideline. He laying out bounds. Like, oh, he's feeling himself. I think the new slot receiver's not on the team just yet.
And by the way, we were debating what was the trade play of the game, the interception. How about the last play of the game? 4th and 9, and the only thing you could do is throw up a 40-yard prayer into double coverage.
But I gotta watch.
By the way, he's dropping the ball on the night. What the hell was Jalen thinking about? I haven't seen the full tape on that one either, but there had to be another better option to try and force the ball in than throw it into double coverage 45 yards down the field.
if my memory serves me correct when that play, I was looking downfield. I think AJ had one-on-one on the side. It was going to be a tough pass going around there, but I'd rather go one-on-one and then try to have the safety run from the middle field to the other side, to the left side of the field, than throwing with all that coverage around in the middle for Devontae, because then you start to run up and try. That was just that whole sequence. The last, not even that one, the last 3-4 drives. I think they finished like the last 7 drives. They didn't score a point. Those last 3 drives were really a lot of questions on them.
Yeah, that I have to watch it again, like you, Chris. We haven't had the opportunity, but I do remember the replay, and I'm like, "What the hell?" That was the play call. I was like, "What is this?" They're running guys down. I saw a crossing route that was going nowhere. I didn't see AJ. Maybe that was the decision to go with the football there, but I thought that was poorly designed for a gotta have it situation. I thought that was really poorly designed.
And then some of the play calling, like just that the first 2 play calling, like they went short and everything else is like it left a lot to be desired. The whole game left a lot to be desired for the most part.
All right, the Eagles didn't run the ball well last night, and I know that John and I are both beating the drum on you got to run that ball on 3rd down and just give the Jets the long field to go. Can we blame the lack of Lane Johnson on that too? We know how Lane great is at pass protection. The opposition hasn't had a sack in years against him. But is the subtraction of him the reason why the Eagles didn't run it worth the darn at all last night as well?
I think it's a little bit. I think I factor in, but not. I don't think it's as big of a factor, because I think, especially if you have a new lineman coming in, I'd rather him running the ball, especially to get into the flow of things and be more aggressive. I look at the way that I don't think the Jets jumped their gaps extremely well. I thought in the overall talent on that defensive line, it truly showed. And they were doing some things. They're slanting the line. They were trying to predict a little bit as well too, like which way they were going. And I thought that when it just seemed like, this is just me looking from the outside looking in, it just seemed like things really changed, even though it was a passing play when Swift fumbled that ball. It just seemed to take it's like they went to a little bit more Gainwell. They tried to do a couple other things on that too. It was like it just seemed to change a little bit more. And I think they really wanted to try to throw the ball more, and Sauce Gardner wasn't down in there more than that. They're focusing more on passing.
I kind of admitted that, and that understandable. Like, I killed Nick for that 2-minute end of game situation, so I'm going to defend him here a little bit, and Brian Johnson as well, because I got a lot of that on our post game show. Why didn't they run the football? Why didn't they run the football? Well, they called 11 runs on 1st down, got a total of 27 yards.
That's the problem right there.
Yeah, most of that was the quarterback, too. The running backs were even worse. They had six of those carries were for 1 yard or less. I mean, when you're getting nothing, and they have no corners, by the way. They have no. Why wouldn't you throw the football? I'm going to defend Nick and that type of, and Brian Johnson. They couldn't run the ball. So what are you going to bang your head against the wall? I don't get this whole. All right, it's 3rd and 9. And 3rd and 9 at the end of the game. Yeah, run it and punt the ball. 3rd and 9 in the middle of the game when you have AJ Brown dominating. DeAndre Swift had a bad game. Simple as that.
See, I also look at it. I think that's a problem. You mentioned the 1st downs. I think that's a problem as well too. It's almost like, on 1st down, especially in the high, like the red zone area, it's pretty much going to be a run. I think you just need to mix up and with some tendencies that are going to happen, because a lot of times, like 1st down, even with
maybe throw it on when they think you're going to obviously run it. And
play action. A little bit more play action early on. I think that changes a little.
Let me go back to this, because John's putting it in a nice context and perspective. Let me try and tighten down on it. And I know none of the 3 of us have watched the replay yet, and or all 22 or anything else. Did Kenny Gainwell have a bad game? Did DeAndre Swift have a bad game? Or was it more the Eagles' offensive line didn't open up any holes?
I think
just
DeAndre
watching it from afar.
Game.
And let me quickly get this in, John.
Sorry.
People who don't know. At MetLife Stadium, I've got unique seats. I sit basically between the goalposts, 2nd level between the goalposts. I chose those seats. I've been a season ticket holder in Shea Stadium, our family has been, because I wanted to have that different perspective. Because you watch every game on TV, it's from the 50-yard line. So it's different. That's what they use as film work, is to tape it between the goalposts. So I get to see that. There weren't holes there last night. We talked about DeAndre Swift and the unbelievable game against Minnesota. You could have driven a Mack truck through that hole. And there were a whole bunch of those were exactly the play. Chris Franklin goes for 12 yards on some of those holes that the Eagles have. Jody McDonald goes for 6 yards on some of those plays. Yeah, DeAndre Swift goes for 25. But I didn't see any of those holes last night. They just weren't there. I got to put this as much on the offensive line as the actual Eagle running backs. How about you guys?
I put it more. I still think there's some cutback lanes. I think that are available. When I remember looking at that one, I thought there was some cutback lanes that are there for them for the taking. But the holes weren't there open for very long. I will say that compared to some of the other sides. Like there are times when you see the lane, you're like, okay, you can see him running through, like you mentioned. But they collapsed very quickly. I think just because of the Jets' defense, how good they are, especially therefore.
They're
really good.
Linebackers and the Eagles not sweating linebackers. Jets have a pair of the two best linebackers on the same team in the National Football League. San Francisco and the Jets have the two best linebacker pairs.
Yeah, I mean, look, DeAndre Swift has had a great start to the season. He had that 9-yard run on the interception drive at the end of the game. And he finished 10 for 18. That means the 9 other carries, he got 9 yards. If you're a great running back, you might be stymied, but that 9 is for 27 yards or 20, and you hit contact. He had a bad game. I don't know if Kenny played enough to have a bad game. Or Boston played enough to have a bad game. The running game as a whole, DeAndre's the guy. He had a bad game, and the fumble on top of it. If you're going to give him credit for those holes against Minnesota, you gotta ding him for not creating, or maybe picking up Jack Driscoll a little bit, or picking up Suo Peta a little bit. Got to do better.
And let me ask. I asked this of John earlier. Let me ask you, Chris Franklin. Shame on the Eagles for not running more 12 personnel. Driscoll comes in. Lane Johnson goes out. Why aren't you going to 2 tight ends? How many plays did Stoll even play last night? A handful at most. Why didn't the Eagles go to 12?
I know he's dealing with a shoulder issue right now, and I don't know how effective he would really be, because then you look at your other one. Albert O was inactive. And Calcaterra, and then you look at them; they're not the best of blocking tight ends. We come to more receiving threats. So your best option to block, unless you want to leave Goddard in, and I kind of think, especially that one too, you're going to do him out. So I think he should have kept more.
He actually played more than I thought. 22
Same here.
reps.
22
snaps.
Yeah, he was. I would have bet under that for sure.
31%. Calcaterra 5 barely plays.
Yeah.
That's about it. Could have done more than that.
Yeah, well, I think that, kind of dealt with the Jets losing all their corners. And yeah, the Eagles got antsy and are like, ooh, there's no corners. We're going to take advantage of this. And AJ did, which, again, when we talk about disappointing players, you got to put DeVonta Smith at the top of that list. I mean, rare. I can't remember the last time I looked at DeVonta Smith and said, you know what? He had a bad game. He had a bad game.
He absolutely did.
Yeah.
First time really.
That's very rare. You have a couple games where you say Detroit week 1 last week when he doesn't get the football and you go, what's going on? But this was objectively a bad game. They were trying to get him the football. And that might be, you're right, Chris. That might be the first time I've ever said that in 2+ years that DeVonta has been here. That was just a bad game from DeVonta.
He got 11 targets and AJ only got 9.
Yeah.
He got the ball thrown to him more than AJ did.
Yeah.
And AJ goes for 131 and DeVonta goes for 44. Hey, do the math on that. That's not good, DeVonta. Sorry about that. It's the swing in both directions. Bad game out of unbelievable game out of AJ. Yeah, that's
and I talked about it with Swift. One of those was 22 yards, Jody. So that means the other 10 targets, he managed 22 yards on those. So 4 receptions for 22 yards. Yeah.
that's
Atypical Devontae Smith. It was a weird game. Jake Elliott's missing field goals. Devontae's dropping passes.
It felt like the Commanders game of last year. It really did. Like halfway through, like through the third quarter, like, uh-oh. It was like, if you had that, like this, I've seen this film before. It really felt like that Commanders game of last year.
Yeah.
all right. We asked this of Jeff Kerr earlier. I'm very intrigued by your response. Eagles lost. Eagles lost a game they weren't supposed to lose. Eagles had guys who had bad games, coaches, quarterbacks, wide receivers, a whole bunch of guys, and the Eagles had a bad luck in that they end up injured in the game, and we'll see how much that bad luck goes forward with injuries going forward. Positive out of this game, a little bit of a wake-up call, a little bit of a, we don't need to play our A game, we still win anyway. McMullen gives us the break on style points all the time. No, his style points don't count in the NFL. So we'll but shoot, we not only lost, we lost the game that we could have won, we should have won. Wake up call, works for them, adjustment and attitude. Is there a silver lining in this loss, Chris Franklin?
I think I was talking to Kobe Dean. He says, like, and he said, and I'll preface this by saying he didn't think that they had this happening for it, but he says you can't have complacency. He said all this week, like, if anything, it teaches everybody you have to continue to have a good week going out in their practice, and I think they're going to be more focused. Problem is, they got the next opponents, the Miami Dolphins, so that's going to be a little rough coming back on that. But I think it teaches them about complacency, and the other thing that's all use that accountability that everybody was talking about. That's the one word you can like when I was talking to everybody in the locker room, you have accountability. So it's nice that you know that you have your leadership team in order to do that. But it really does send a message like, hey, you know what? You got to value these games, because that was a week. When everything's going to be said and done, you look at the way it's shaken down. 5 of the 6 top seeds in the conference lost. The Lions were the only one that won. And I think it's this. I hate to say it, but I think when all is said and done at the end of this week, this could be the reason why the Eagles dropped to the 2 seed and possibly the 3 seed because of this loss. Because you look at the way the Lions, the rest of their schedule, you look at the way the 49ers, you had a chance to get a game in hand on them, and you didn't take advantage of it. This is the one that potentially may have impacted your road to the Super Bowl. They may say they may not be looking that far ahead, but I am, and I'm looking at that. I think this is a loss that knocks them to the 2 or 3 seed, and that's very significant given the 49ers and the Lions that are on there and having to go on the road instead of hosting a potential NFC Championship game.
At C Franklin News, make sure you follow Chris on X, Twitter, read him at nj.com. He's all over the place. Does a tremendous job covering this team. I'm going to make you the head coach for this week, Chris.
Maybe you'll see.
How do you go about this film? Do you put up 6 and say, here's your mistakes? Put up 0, here's your mistakes. Put up 88, here's your mistakes. Or do you say, this is so uncharacteristic, I'm not even going to dump the film. Don't worry about it. Just get back to work. Learn from it, as Jody said. Silver lining, accountability. How do you handle this veteran team moving forward?
You show the film and you light a fire under. You light a fire under our butts. I think you have to show the film. You got to treat it like any other week. I mean, if you're doing the same things during the first 5 weeks where you're winning, you got to show the same things when you're losing and you have a bad performance like they did on Sunday. And that's one of those things where if you're a competitor and you got that fire, you want to come out the next week, not only against the Dolphins, not just the Dolphins, but you just want to come out there and prove that you aren't as bad as you showed on there. That's going to light a fire under you. You're just going to really get you going and trying to go like, okay, I know what my job is. I don't want to look like this for 2 consecutive weeks. I want to get embarrassed in front of the national audience again. So I'm looking at everything that I did. If I'm a player, I'm looking at everything I did wrong, using that in the back of my mind and perfecting that and coming out on the practice field Wednesday and doing anything necessary to be able to do to fix everything. I don't think you can't change everything up completely just because of one loss. And if anything, I think it's a big motivating factor for him.
The one thing I will guarantee this week, no walkthrough Wednesday, no walkthrough Thursday. No. We got to get back to work. I put in a little effort. If you're going to scream and yell in a meeting, that's one thing. You got to be able to take it out onto the practice field. And you got to be able to tell them, here's what we did wrong. Let's actually work on it. Rather than just dissect it via film, let's get out and have a teaching moment or two, not just walking through. Seeing as you're dropping like flies with injuries anyway, the less work thing doesn't guarantee anything as far as injuries go. How about you get a little work in on the field? You agree or disagree?
They had padded practice last week too. That's the thing. I know they had a padded practice. Somebody was a couple players trying to rush their pads in and put it in so they can get out there. So I think, if anything, I may do a walkthrough Wednesday. I really do because you need to rest. These guys are. If anything, if anything to teach, especially those young guys in the secondary.
I go to. I want to predispose Nick's belief system, but whoever you believe in, maybe say, hey, give me Lane Johnson back, give me Jalen Carter back, give me Darius Slay back. Maybe that helps. Maybe I'm at the point now. I'm looking at if Driscoll struggles halfway through, I'm elevating Tyree Phillips. I'm elevating Tyree Phillips. I forgot to mention Tyree. Yeah,
I'm having a backup plan ready because the last thing you want is to then have your quarterback dinged up and getting hit all the time. So you might as well try something else if it continues that way.
Did you really just go there, Chris Franklin? Did you bring up, without using his name, Marcus Mariota? The Eagles got enough problems after yesterday's day. You're going to put it out there into the ether that Marcus Mariota could be playing quarterback for the Eagles sometime soon?
If they don't protect Jalen Hurts. If they don't protect him, that's the only way. That's the only way I see him go.
By the way, let me sneak this in because you brought up Tyree Phillips on the practice squad, former third-round pick. He's got some experience at right tackle. Tyler Steen, before he moved to left tackle at Alabama, was a right tackle at Vanderbilt. Maybe get him going. What's going on with Tyler Steen? Maybe get him going.
Maybe if they used all of their time that they're allotted in practice, you could cross-train these guys a little bit more than they actually have. Just saying.
They do. I think Steen's more of a left tackle than right now, and I think they played it right there. So if you move him to left, play left, he's back left tackle, and you're back at right tackle. Like Bart.
And Jeff's not one, but he's played more right tackle than he has left tackle. Technically, he was a right tackle for longer at Vandy than he was a left tackle at Alabama. You got to open your mind if you have no Lane Johnson. Now the best hope is Lane's back.
Yep. Tape that up and numb it up and say, Lane, please help us again, Bill.
And we all sit here and know if it can be done, it will be done by Lane Johnson because he plays as hurt, willing to put up with more pain than anybody else on this Eagle team and has done it that way for years. Chris Franklin, always a pleasure, buddy. Appreciate you jumping in.
Thanks,
we'll get back up next week.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Follow him on Twitter and read him at nj.com. Chris Franklin here with us on Birds 365. All right, coming back. It's time to put a bow in the. We got to try and put this one behind us, Eagle fans.
Yeah, first lost show of the season.
Ooh. Yeah, a little bit different. We'll come back, put a bow in the show here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lee Hockey a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Mac guys here on Birds 365. We'll get you back again here tomorrow. Today was a tough show to do from an Eagle fan perspective for you guys to have to listen to our analysis of it, and it couldn't be good because you lose to a team you're not supposed to lose to.
By the way, I got one more piece of bad news before we go, Jody, because I did not notice this. So I'm going to, my buddy Jimmy Kemsky, I just mentioned Grant Calcaterra had 5 snaps, played 5 reps. 4 of them were on the final drive, those final 4 plays. And what that means is Dallas Goedert got hurt too, likely on the interception, because he was not on the field for the final 4 plays. I haven't watched the replay.
And if he got hurt, all he did was a sit down route.
Well,
he went 12 yards and sat down, and the guy who picked off the pass cut in front of him. I don't remember the other Jet D back laying him out. I don't even know how he got out.
I don't think the TV, because I'll read what Jimmy put. I tried to see, and this is Jimmy talking. I tried to see what it might have been, but hard to tell. He did get hit on the ill-advised Jalen Hurts throw that was picked. I don't know, but the fact that he wasn't on I don't think he got benched in that situation.
Well, his fault, Jalen threw the ball where he threw the ball.
So that's not a good sign as well. 4 of the 5 plays on the
And
final.
one other injury question before we run here, John, because again, it is what we do, speculate. Cindy Brown actually took practice last week.
Told me he was playing. Flat out told me.
They got and didn't play, didn't dress. Later in the week, aggravation, or did they not? They wanted to give him, because it's a hammy, more time. I was shocked when he wasn't even active for the game. I guess you'll find out more during the week, but any guess on what the hell happened there?
I guess it could have been a tweak on Friday. Now, he told me, flat out told me on Thursday he was going to play. He's ready to go. So I didn't see him on Friday. So I guess there could have been a tweak. Other than that, I started it with hubris. I'll end it with hubris. I think they thought they could buy another week and they were going to win the game. But yeah, technically there could have been a tweak, but Thursday, I even asked him, so it's still 50-50 you're going to play, is still not sure, and he said, no, I'm playing. Now, look, he doesn't have the final decision. I remember Britton Covey as a rookie said he broke his hand in the preseason. He didn't break his hand. He thought he broke his hand, but then he got x-rays, MRI, and he didn't break his hand. So players don't always know 100% what the doctors are thinking, but he certainly thought he was going to play on Thursday.
Here's a key. If Reed Blankenship is going to be out this week, and we don't know the extent of the rib injury he suffered, we just know he didn't come back. And ribs can be a tricky thing, too. Oh, they're going to need Sidney Brown. He better be ready to go this week against the Dolphins because the best passing attack in the NFL is coming to town next Sunday night.
Yeah.
All right, McMullen and McDonald, we'll be back. Are you in for tomorrow, 22 hours from now?
Yeah, man. Day to day, but I'm planning on it. A lot of injuries. You never know what crops up. We're just talking about with Sidney Brown, who did practice on. He wasn't on the injury report, so that doesn't indicate a tweak. So I'm going to go hubris, Jody.
Okay. Well, there'll be no hubris involved. They're going to need him this week against the Dolphins. McMullen and McDonald right back here tomorrow in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.